Hello, I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by Ann Ferguson, who's the Vice President of Marketing with Alarm.com. Hi, Ann, how are you?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm doing very well. Good to see you today.
Good to see you as well. Thanks so much for sharing your time and insights with us today. We wanted to learn from Alarm.com's perspective, from your perspective, what industry and consumer trends you're seeing that are really shaping the residential security space right now.
There are so many. It's really been an exciting time to be in this space because there are so many technological advances happening at the same time. Consumers are really ramping up their adoption of security and smart home services. So, really exciting time to be in this space. And a couple of the things that we've seen evolving over the last year plus, and that we think will continue for the next year, are around things like thinking beyond just perimeter protection. So historically, as consumers thought about security, it was primarily around protecting the outside of their home and making sure bad guys didn't get into the home. But increasingly, smart home services are able to help consumers protect everything inside the home as well and to understand what's happening inside the home. So whether it's protection from water damage and leaks or mold in the home, for example. They're just new ways of thinking about protection beyond just that very traditional sort of perimeter protection, which is obviously still very important. Another area of tremendous growth, I think not surprisingly, has been in video. Certainly, newer cameras and technologies like video analytics that make video services so much more useful for consumers have really helped to drive demand. And certainly, the doorbell camera has been a tremendous new use case for consumers, and the adoption of that service has just been, I think, beyond what really anyone would have imagined. But what that's done is it's also gotten consumers thinking about other ways that video can be useful. And in particular, we're seeing an increased adoption and excitement around other interior video use cases. So, similar to what I was saying about security, video for a long time was just used for exterior perimeter protection. But now, especially these days, when a lot of us are still at home, we are working from home, we are schooling our children from home, thinking about indoor video use cases where I can do things like be in one room of the house, but quickly use video to check in and make sure that my kids are actually online and in school the way that they should be. A year ago, that's not something that I would have considered, and now it's invaluable to me. So think we're starting to see a lot more in the way of utility around interior video use cases. And then one of the last areas that really has an impact on everything that we're doing is thinking about the impact of AI and how that is fueling so much in the way of efficiency and greater usefulness of smart home and security services. And I'll just give one quick example. One of the features that Alarm.com offers is called unexpected activity alerts. And with that feature, the system in the home starts to learn what normal patterns look like. And then when anything unusual happens, you'll automatically get an alert about that. So, for example, early on in COVID, actually, it was one of the first days that we were home. I got an unexpected activity alert that my patio door had opened in mid afternoon, around 2 o'clock, I think. And that was very unusual. That wouldn't have normally happened on a weekday, but the system recognized that was unusual and immediately let me know. And the great thing about that is I didn't have to set up a whole lot of complex rules to get that notification. The system just automatically knew and it was able to understand what was normal. And when something unusual happened, it let me know very quickly. So, again, just an incredibly useful feature and something that is a good example of how AI is really making smart home more useful, accessible, and I think safer for consumers as well.
Yeah, one of the knocks on the earlier generation of smart home solutions is that they may have been connected but not smart yet.
Yeah.
So, are you seeing the technology evolve such that it is becoming more intuitive and intelligent and really solving some pain points for consumers?
Absolutely. And that's, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of where AI can really be beneficial for consumers. One of the other things that we've seen really significant adoption of has been a feature called Scenes, where it's very simple, but it's just a single tap in the app that allows multiple different things to happen at the same time. So, for example, a wake up scene. I can simply tap in the app and then I can have relevant doors unlock, the security system can disarm, certain lights can turn on. And it just makes it easier. That's one tap instead of 4 or 5 taps. And I can customize those scenes very specifically to my home, my family, and to our needs. So, rather than having to open up 5 different apps to do 5 different things, I've got this singular experience where all the different smart devices are working in concert with one another to deliver a great experience for me.
Yeah, and that ease of use and the customization is really where the rub has come, because no household's the same, no house layout is the same. Different households have different numbers of household family members, and so trying to make it easy to customize is really a difficult thing. Well, what do you think the next phase in the smart home looks like?
I think it's going to be a continued evolution of bringing more and more into the fold. If we go back probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't think that most of us in the security industry could have imagined that we would be talking about water protection solutions, for example, or connected car solutions. But we really are able to take so many different mission critical systems in the home, and now even with something like car outside of the home, and connect them all together. And we're really excited to continue to see that happening.
Yeah, that ecosystem does seem to continue to grow and expand and push the boundaries of what's included in the smart home. So very exciting to watch. Thank you, Anne, for joining us today and giving us a little bit of your thoughts of how this market is shaping and growing. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk with you.
If you miss a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to Watch Replays and click on the session that you want to view. Have you created your own event agenda and swap card? Visit the Agenda and Watch Replay tabs to add sessions that interest you to your own event. You can go back to My Event to revisit any bookmarked sessions, sponsors, and items. We want to make sure that you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors. You can interact with them by visiting the Booths and the Sponsor tab. You can also bookmark sponsors or add items to your event to view later. Sponsors have uploaded extra materials for attendees. Make sure to visit sponsors that interest you to chat with one of their team members or save documents for later. We have dedicated meeting slots set up for break times between sessions. Continue the discussion by requesting meetings from others in the SwapCard platform. Schedule a meeting with another attendee or a sponsor by visiting their page. The panelists and speakers will be addressing your questions live during the stream. During the stream, use the question tab to ask your questions early in the presentation. Go to the poll tab to answer polls that will be discussed during the live stream. If you need help navigating SwapCard, please reach out to our team by mentioning @Parks Associates in the chat box or by contacting one of our team members via our company page. Welcome to Parks Associates' 25th Annual Connections Conference. We're hosting sessions throughout the year, but this week features big conversations on the state of the industries we cover and officially marks our 25th anniversary of hosting this awesome event. My name is Elizabeth Parks, and I'm the president of Parks Associates. We want to thank you for joining us and supporting our event this year. Executive conferences have always been a part of Parks Associates' core business, bringing together leadership of companies developing services and products and driving innovation in the connected home, smart home, entertainment, security, connected health, support services, digital media, and OTT pay TV services. Over the past few decades, Parks Associates has worked with thousands of companies, sharing our knowledge and insights conducted throughout millions of responses from consumers. Our goal is to provide clients in the industries we serve with the best in consumer and market insights. We cover emerging technologies and specifically the impact and opportunities as ecosystems overlap. 35 years ago, Tricia Parks founded Parks Associates after working as VP of Research for another firm called Future Computing. The initial focus of Parks Associates was within the computing sector, with an emphasis in understanding the diffusion of computing technologies, specifically the PC, in consumers' homes. As a consumer researcher, she had a vision for how technology could change the way we live and work. Tricia grew Parks Associates slowly and independently, covering the consumer tech markets and adding expertise in broadband technologies and adoption, home networking and residential gateways, utility deregulation and consumer choice, home controls, and entertainment, with a vision of mass market adoption for technologies, creating a whole home technology experience for consumers with integration across the various ecosystems in the home. When Connections was hosted for the first time in 1996, we called it the Residential Gateway and Home Networking Conference, before settling on the final name Connections in 1998. But with a tagline that has changed over the years with the growth and innovation of technology, we started with enabling the networked home, then went through a few more tagline changes, including in-home networking and gateways, the International Home Networking and Gateways Conference, the Digital Home Conference, and the Digital Living Conference. And for the past few years, we have maintained the event tagline, the Premier Connected Home Conference. In 2006, we started hosting Connections Europe in order to address key issues for the European markets. Throughout the years, we have talked about the adoption of broadband, the distribution of technology products, and the consumer demand. And the residential gateway, the home network, and broadband have always been at the center of the conversation. The technology enabling these products to deliver on their promise has always been at the heart of our conversation. Also, the partnerships, new relationships between ecosystem players, and the entrance of the tech giants in the past decade have been critical to understanding the evolution of the connected home. More importantly, though, is our focus on the consumer and the adoption and intentions consumers have to bring and pay for these new technologies in their homes. Our research is the backdrop of everything we do and leads our analysis and insights that we share at our events. One thing that has not changed is our desire to bring you leading industry insights from our talented research and analyst team, and from leading experts from top companies in these fields. Our team is ready to connect and learn more about your company's offerings. Thank you for joining us today and for the last 25 years. We look forward to the connections that await.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our 25th annual Connections event. If you joined us yesterday, welcome back. We certainly will have many more very important discussions for anyone in this space. Now, the title of today's track is Home Service Opportunities, where we want to evaluate the different services that are emerging in the connected home. I'm Patrice Samuels, and I will be leading this track. So we'll kick it off with some welcome and insights on the services that are emerging in the home currently. Then we'll move right into some industry insights from Front Door Home, or visionary insights from Front Door Home. Next, we'll transition to the executive Q&A, which will be led by Elizabeth Parks, and she'll be joined by Plume. After that, we'll have our interactive panel discussion. And then right after, we'll move over into our networking discussions, which will give everyone a chance to join into the conversation. So before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors who are helping to make this event possible. They are Alarm.com, Calix, Cox Communities, SmartRent, Bitdefender, Tuya, Ayla Networks, Plume, and AirTies. I also want to thank the industry associations that are supporting the event. Again, before we get started, I just want to remind you that we will have several other opportunities for you to participate in our Connections event throughout the year. We'll have another track in July, and then again in August, and in September, and then again, we'll have a couple of tracks in November. So please join us for those. All right, so I'd like to kick off the track by highlighting some of the services that we see emerging in the connected home and present some insights on consumer adoption or interest in these services. Now, as we've watched the smart home evolve, one of the undeniable trends has been the fact that much of the growth in the smart home space has been through consumer adoption of standalone products rather than bundles of devices or bundles or services. However, services continue to be an important part of the smart home industry as those recurring revenues are very necessary to offset some of the costs, the ongoing costs that are incurred by these devices and by device manufacturers. Many also perceive that smart home hardware will eventually become commoditized and smart home services will be the key differentiator among companies going forward. So some of the services that we want to look at and evaluate will include independent living services, in-home package delivery services, energy, indoor quality monitoring services, as well as technical support and warranty services. Now, when we think about independent living services, we're defining them collectively as affordable, accessible alternatives to assisted living facilities for seniors that do not require medical care. Now, these are monitoring solutions that are comprised of different smart home products, which may include cameras and a variety of sensors. Now, we think that there's a significant market opportunity here as nearly 90% of consumers age 65 or older consider it very important to live independently in their own homes for as long as possible. Now, when we ask these consumers what features of an independent living system would be most important to them, more than 40% are reporting that things such as safety solutions, such as the ability to detect, say, fire or water or gas leaks would be most important. But more than 20% are also interested in things like notifications if they've left the garage door unlocked, or monitoring systems that will notify first responders if they need help. Now, there are a number of companies that are already tackling this market, and those include Alarm.com and Essence. And in 2020, Amazon, introduced the Care Hub Alexa feature that allows caregivers to program the activities that they want to monitor and have notifications about these specific activities sent to their smartphones. So, of course, I mentioned earlier that there's a significant market opportunity for this, but of course, the addressable market is also growing. According to the US Census Bureau, they estimate that approximately 20% of the population will be age 65 or above by the year 2020. Now, energy management is about the monitoring of energy consumption patterns in the home to curtail energy usage. And of course, a part of that is helping families to become more informed and energy efficient. So energy monitoring solutions would include things like the monitoring of smart devices, such as smart thermostats, smart light bulbs, smart plugs, smart meters, and smart appliances, such as refrigerators, ovens, and clothes washers and dryers. Now, we know that there is demand for energy management in broadband households, of course. The question here is always about whether or not they're willing to pay for these energy management services and how much they would be willing to pay for the services. Now, our research is showing that 56% of smart thermostat owners and purchase intenders are willing to pay $10 per month for a service that remotely monitors electricity consumption patterns. And of course, a big part of that is making suggestions to reduce the overall energy consumption. So those statistics, though, are among smart thermostat owners, but generally we know that getting consumers to engage with energy management services has been challenging. And one reason for that is because it's often difficult for customers to actually see the value, especially if they're not paying a lot for their current monthly energy costs. So we think then perhaps that bundling energy monitoring services with other related services, such as HVAC monitoring or indoor air quality monitoring or energy resilience services, may expand the addressable market here. Now, what we're seeing is that consumers are indicating a willingness to pay for these services as well. For HVAC monitoring, we're finding that 57% of consumers are willing to pay $10 per month for a service that monitors the health of their equipment to prevent major equipment problems. Now, for energy resilience, we're finding that 60% of broadband households are willing to pay some amount of a monthly fee for backup power services. And we know, of course, that there's some markets where power backup is now top of mind, with many Texas and California experiencing rolling blackouts in the past year. And, power generators are increasingly difficult to come by these days as well. So energy resilient services might have strong appeal there in those markets. Now, indoor air quality is another service that has a prime opportunity right now, given consumer concerns about pathogens such as COVID-19 in the air. And we're seeing where 18% of broadband households are reporting that they'd be willing to, or very likely to subscribe to a service that analyzes their air quality and recommend actions to take to improve it. Now, of course, this is at a rate of $2.99 per month. In-home delivery subscriptions. Now, these allow retailers and package couriers to deliver purchased goods securely to the inside of consumers' homes while they're away from home. Now, these services typically include a smart access device, such as a smart door lock or a smart garage door opener, and a smart camera to monitor the deliveries. Now, our research is showing that 20% of US broadband households are interested in a service that delivers packages inside their home when they're not there. Now, this is another one of those services that have existed for years, but has not yet, garnered that mainstream use. In our research, we have 12% of consumers saying that they've used a service like this, which seems like a lot, but these services are being offered by two of the largest retailers in the country, which are Amazon and Walmart. Amazon offers delivery through the front door, in the garage, and in gate is what they're branding that as. And then Walmart delivers to the garage, to the kitchen, and even to the refrigerator. Now, Amazon announced in November of last year that it would expand its in-garage services to reach 4,000 cities across the US. And I assume the garage services there were expanded first due to the pandemic. And I suspect that the company will expand the other services, to the other access points as well. Now, these services face the challenge of consumer discomfort with strangers accessing the home, of course, but they also face competition from a number of smart package storage box solutions that are emerging from companies like BoxLock and Gale. And we learned that in January, Walmart actually began testing grocery delivery to smart coolers from a company called Home Valet. So we do see where there's interest in these services, but in the near term, it seems like the market is going to be split between, those who are comfortable with strangers entering the home and those who are more comfortable with a large storage box at the front of their home. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, technical support services, traditionally, these are offered separately. Technical support has traditionally involved enablement and troubleshooting, so helping consumers get their devices up and running and helping consumers to navigate and learn how to use their device features. Then, of course, helping consumers to troubleshoot issues or providing tips to optimize the performance of their devices. Warranties have traditionally been more of repairing and replacing broken devices or equipment or systems in the home. Now, the lines are increasingly blurred with these services, especially as the technical landscape of the home is changing. Now, over the years, we've seen where consumers have purchased both services and extended warranties, both support services and extended warranties for the same devices. And we've tried to, assess how critical having that bundle or that single home service support provider is. So the data you're looking at is showing the likelihood of purchasing a smart home device if it came bundled with a support service, if it came bundled with a warranty service, or if it came bundled with an extended warranty that also offered technical support. So you're seeing there where there's a slight bump for when the services are bundled together in terms of the improvements or the increase in the likelihood of purchasing a smart home device. Now, we heard a lot of conversations yesterday that many players in the security or many security system providers are seeing their role evolving into becoming advisors or consultants that help consumers, to get the service capabilities that they want from their devices and expand their smart homes as necessary. So this support role is going to be very critical going forward, and many different players, including security system providers and home service providers, and even traditional technical support providers, have the ability to take on that role. Now, very quickly, I wanted to look also at broadband-only services. as of course, this is not a new service that is emerging in broadband households, but what's different here is the number of consumers who are now taking broadband only services. So we're seeing where the traditional home service bundles are declining, which was pay TV and home phone services included, but consumers are clearly indicating that those bundles are no longer working. And so there are a lot of them are taking broadband only services. So broadband service providers are in need of new service bundles to drive higher revenues, and of course many services seem like a good fit, especially those involving cybersecurity and network security in the home. As consumers acquire more devices, they're increasingly concerned about home network security, and the different stories of security breaches in the media is also driving awareness of home network vulnerability. Consumers are also increasingly aware of their data being captured and used in ways that they've not authorized. So online privacy services are becoming appealing, and then network optimization services are also more relevant now that consumers are increasingly dependent on their home network. So all these services are gaining popularity, and of course all these services mentioned here as well would be a great addition for a technical support bundle. So I will just pause here to see if we have any questions. I can probably take one real quickly. Do we have any questions? Okay. All right. We will then transition into our Visionary Insights segment in the interest of time. And for our Visionary Insights segment, we have Front Door Home, and we have two speakers from Front Door Home for our Visionary Insights speakers. Lucky for us, we have Pires Thiagarjian as well as Brett Worthington. So before we get into the questions and we learn to find a little bit more about what Front Door Home perceives as the home of the future or the vision for home services. Let's give each presenter a chance to introduce themselves. A brief introduction, I'd say name, title, and role in the company, and then we can get into the discussion that we have planned. So let's go ahead and let's start with Pires.
Hi everyone. You can hear me fine?
Hearing you just fine.
Awesome. I'm Pires Thiagarjian. I am the Chief Technology Officer for Front Door, and very happy to be here.
Brett, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you, Patrice. Good morning to everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Brett Worthington, Senior Vice President of Business Development at Front Door, which includes acquisitions, corporate development, as well as other channels of business that are run across the revenue and sales side of Front Door.
Thank you, Brett. So of course, we're talking about home services. This entire track is centered on home services, and we know that that's exactly the business that Front Door Inc. is in. So I wanted us to just start by getting a sense of your vision for home services. What do you think the role is of the home service provider in the home, and how has that changed over the years, in your opinion? So Pires, if you want to kick it off.
Sure. So if you look at a traditional homeowner, they buy the home and then they realize there's a big cost to the home ownership itself, and the realization comes over the first 5 years. It depends on how well the home has been maintained. And one of the stats that I recently just saw was, especially in the millennials, almost 21% of people after buying the home have the sticker shock about maintenance. And one of the primary focus for Front Door is how to take the hassle out of the home ownership, which is, it's not just the cost that is the surprise. It is, home is your most sacred place, and being able to live in it, have your family safe, and have all the basic services work, water, air and heating, all of that work properly is a very critical aspect of it. So traditionally, it is the home ownership, home warranty has always been viewed as some kind of insurance, and we are working to change that mindset. We actually want our customers to use our service, enjoy the service, and we also understand customers might be in a different mindset. They may not want to go just straight for a home warranty, but they want to get the services on demand. So we are looking at different blend of services that we can provide, both for people who like the home warranty aspect of it, or who want on-demand services and be able to take advantage of our expansive network and technology and strength that we have. So we are building a lot of technologies, putting together a lot of technologies in place. That will make this whole experience smooth, and that's really what we are going for in our journey.
Great. So it sounds to me like some of the primary differences with the traditional home warranty services that you're trying to be more engaged with your customers and not just at the point where they actually need something. That's one. And of course, you're trying to provide different business model options, so you again can meet consumers where they are based on the business model that they think works better for them and their budget.
Yeah, I think if you imagine, right, a customer, different people have a different mindset. It is some folks can be a DIY kind of people who like, hey, I want to try and do some things ourselves, but at the same time, the home systems are critical. It requires licensed technicians to be able to even touch those systems. So one of the biggest things is for us to help customers diagnose and see what the issue is. And if there's something really small, we can help them cross the hurdle themselves. So we really want to be to be able to help the customer at any stage of the journey. So the DIY set of the customers. And then the second part of it is customers who would like to try, but then eventually they might say, hey, I want help now. This is beyond me. For various reasons, I don't have the time, or this is something I don't have the tools for, whatever it might be. And of course, the customers who really want just a service directly, just come and fix it for me because I don't think I can handle this myself. So we want to be able to cover that whole spectrum, and really the goal there is get customer back up and running as quickly as possible.
So you're meeting customers then where their budgets are, but also where their skill levels are, it sounds like. All right, thank you, Pyrrhus. Now, let me ask you, Brett, can you talk a little bit more about how the service adds value specifically in the smart home space?
Yeah, Patrice, I think you did a great job in your introduction, framing up with some of the data that you shared around the proliferation we've seen in smart home devices by hardware manufacturers that also have a service attached specifically to those devices. If you think about, say, HVAC and that monitoring data point that you shared, 57% of people are willing to pay. You're really moving home services from repair and replace or reactive to a proactive state. And very similar to what Ross is saying, how do you take the hassle out of home ownership? Think about smart devices, whether that's machine to machine or smart home or IoT type devices that have continued to proliferate in the last decade. And now we're seeing mass adoption and usage at a higher rate than we've ever seen before. How do you think about something like HVAC? If you could understand the performance threshold of an HVAC system and understand that it's not performing at the threshold that it should be, that you could actually go out and prevent a catastrophic failure. And as you know, Parks Associates in Austin, nothing worse than not having an HVAC system in Austin during the summer. If you can understand that and actually prevent that failure and then show that customer the value of that price, and also the hardware manufacturer and partnering with hardware manufacturers to be able to do that, that changes the entire journey. And you've now got a customer and a homeowner with a surprise and delight that you prevented that. Not only prevented the heartache of being hot in the summer, but the catastrophic failure and what that potential cost could be. That same value extends across many IoT devices. The proliferation now of smart appliances. If you look at all the major OEMs, they are continuing to move to everything connected. And as you think about that last mile of service and where we play, part of the problem is getting those connected. We're in millions of homes every single year. How do we work with our OEM partners to understand, hey, what is being connected? How do we think about data or fault codes? And if you could understand the fault code prior to a failure of an appliance, is that a better experience for the brand of the OEM and the customer, as well as in warranty or out of warranty, and the technicians that we roll, and understanding that fault and that detection prior to a truck roll? Another great experience. Or how do you prevent that up front? And so, there's many other use cases. And Patrice, you shared another point. With the proliferation, devices need to be covered more, right? People, when something fails or something is not working, what is the customer experience? Where do they go for help? Or if there's breakage in these smart devices, how are they covered where they've spent a lot of money making those investments? And so we're seeing more and more adoption to electronics coverage. We're seeing more and more customers asking for more support, more technical support. And so we've expanded our network and even with broader partnerships on how do we service that from an on-demand perspective or also on a failure perspective.
Okay, so it sounds like, one of the most important parts here is that proactive element. So that preventative maintenance that's really going to be important to add value for consumers. If they're able to save money on major equipment damage or a major repair, then that's part of where you're adding value. And also there's a huge need for support just based on the fact that the technical complexity, and I think I alluded to that earlier as well, the technical complexity of the home is actually increasing, which, not every customer, again, has the skill level to figure out themselves when something goes wrong. So again, I'm going to switch back to you a little bit, Pyrrhus. Can you tell us then, and I guess this is not necessarily on the proactive level or proactive scale, but I guess more on the reactive scale. What are some of the primary use cases that are driving the need for home services right now?
It's a pretty broad spectrum, but normally it starts with the basic core systems in the house, that is like the HVAC unit or the air conditioning units that might be there. And then the other parts of it, such as your appliances that exist, like the washer, dryers, and making sure your basic household appliances are working fine. And then now, as we see, the demand for other coverages are much more, we can see the demand from our customers, and they are interested in coverage such as roof coverages or electronics coverage that you talked about earlier. Now, as the home gets even more smarter, knowing how these devices connect, how we can detect faults early on, and how we can actually help some of these problems to be fixed just by firmware update. Those are all the expanding scopes that we are seeing. I think over time, we will see more and more of not just preventative, but even the basic setup also become a big part of it. Because once you think about these devices being connected, the initial setup will become a big issue. And that's where we see solutions that, such as Stream that we have, will help our customers, where once they have the appliance, we will be able to even tell them what are the basic steps to onboard, either through our help videos or even sometimes walking them through the journey of making sure their appliances and other systems are set up correctly.
Yes, sounds good. And I think one of the primary benefit then of having a home service provider like yourself is the improvement in the experience that I would have versus having to, source a contractor myself independently whenever something goes wrong. So can you talk to me a little bit more, Brett, about how you're viewing user experience in the space, and just what do you think are some of the key elements of a good user experience when you're providing a home service?
Yeah, as you look at the home services industry, which is a $400 billion market, one of the things that we are really focused on is working from the customer backward. And what are the friction points in home services today? And so where we focus on is, you think about the service delivery mechanism, or what are the expectations of that homeowner and that customer. It really comes down to some simple pieces of that, right? And as you look at the industry broadly, one, they want a trusted company and a trusted advisor on an area that they're not an expert in. They want transparency. They want transparency in status. And when I say status, really defined as when any of us as homeowners or consumers, when is my appointment and when is my contractor coming to my home? And something as simple as that, people may think that's maybe overstated, but it's really not. If you think about your own personal experience, status is really critical. When is my appointment? What are the needs, or how critical is that service component that you're asking for? Where is my contractor? When are they going to be there? And then as part of status, that communication loop, and that builds the broader trust and transparency with the consumer and the homeowner, which again creates long-term value for any company as you think about that customer journey. Did you send the right technician and the right contractor for that service request? Did you have the right level of detail and data to make sure that when you show up to that home, that you have the right person there to do the job that prevents a longer cycle time? And as you look at the home services industry in general, you could look at it by trade, or you could look at it by various aspects of who's servicing what. The cycle times in the industry have been historically very long. And how do you think about end to end, where a homeowner doesn't understand supply chain or everything that goes into servicing that home? How do you break that down and say, how do we create the best experience? And that requires, including us, working with all of our partners on the backside, because no homeowner wants to hear that a part is on back order for weeks, or that, hey, we can't solve your problem. And so that is really where understanding diagnosis and transparency around what it is we're doing is really paramount for this industry to create a better customer experience overall. And that really is solving not just those upfront customer facing problems, but building transparency and trust, and getting buy-in from all of your partners, including contractors, technicians, hardware manufacturers, OEMs, and so on. And that will actually produce a much greater experience across the entire industry.
Great, thanks. So Pierce, Brett talked about cycle time being one of the critical components of a good user experience, and I'm sure we can all agree. But I mean, your team in particular has a broad range of contractors located nationwide. I think you mentioned 17,000 contractors or more, providing services on your behalf. So I'm just curious then, it's such a broad group, how are you able to maintain that level of service? Is there a trick to that? Is there a strategy?
So so contractors are a very critical part of our journey, and enabling them at every phase is really where the challenge is, right? Obviously, if you look at any the contractor, they're in the full spectrum of being a single person running their business and juggling a lot of things, to a big contracting company that has several technicians under one roof. And each of them have a different operating mechanism in terms of how they get the job, how they perceive the work, how are they able to go and visit the customer's home. This is so our challenge and our what we strive to do as much as possible is to arm the contractor with as much critical information as possible before the work, before they have to take the first step, before the first truck roll. As an example, Stream is a very, very critical portion of that. We have been doing that work. We've been working with the contractors, especially during the pandemic. It became even more obvious that customers are at their home, they are using their appliances, but if it breaks, they are now worried whether they can get a contractor. Is this going to be safe? And the contractors have the same concern. Is this going to be easy for me to go repair? And I don't know what I need to be ready with and what kind of failures are there. So we introduced the Stream technology right during this time, and that enabled contractors to be able to go and make customers. And interestingly, what we saw was a contractor, instead of them being able to do 2 or 3 trips in a day to their customers, they were now able to do 8 or 9 visits, virtual visits, and be able to diagnose and be able to get information before they go to the customers. So the first time fix is much better. Contractors are obviously getting more information before they're able to go forward. And that changes the cycle really in terms of the information cycle. So you start with good data, and everything downstream starts acting a little bit more clearer. And the customers obviously have a better journey through this process.
Great. So Brett, I mean, I think we talked about it earlier that, consumers like to have that one provider, that trusted provider that they're aware of, or that they've kind of gotten to know per se, to provide their services for them. That's generally a preference that we've seen in our research, over the years. So, by utilizing, your business model utilizes a number of contractors from different places, do you think this is challenging your ability to maintain customers? Do you see this affecting your customer relationships in any way, the fact that they can't have that single provider for each service each time?
I don't think so. I think when a homeowner and what we've seen, or if you look at the industry and the research that's out there, homeowners really want a trusted provider, whether that's someone working on their HVAC or their plumbing or their electrical systems or their smart home devices. That is really one point of contact, and not managing 5 or 6 on their own, right? They may have a go-to, but if you have a preferred network of contractors that are meeting expectations and service levels, that really is a homeowner saying, hey, I trust this company to do all of my work and take the hassle out of my home ownership, right, across the board, whether that's my pool and spa or anything. It's really also was part of the, when we looked at the on-demand space beyond just home warranty, how do we leverage our network to create that same transparency and trust that they have one source to go to get great customer experience and great service, whether that's in repair and replace, or if that's in a proactive or maintenance service. As you think about something as simple as carpet cleaning, or something as simple as a handyman or maintenance type work around the home. And when you have that transparency built, you continue to build that equity with that homeowner, and that you become the go-to, because they know that they're going to get the same level of service across any of those trades. And also that we're protecting their data. We're not selling off their data to have leads, or have 10 different contractors solicit them, which becomes very consuming. And if you look at the marketplaces today, that can be frustrating. How do you know how to gauge the level of service you're getting? There's so much information out there. How do you level set on that benchmark? How do you know what reviews to believe, or what contractor and variant of pricing? When you have one trusted source on one price and the transparency of that price, and knowing you're going to get those service levels, it creates a lasting member for us and a lasting customer. So we believe we're solving for that problem as well that's been in this industry. Still not solved completely. We're on a great journey to get there.
Great, interesting. So you did mention that maintaining, strong logistics or having, strong control over that is very important to providing the level of service that Front Door, attempts to provide to customers. So I know there are a lot of technologies that, many are utilizing now to support, just having those strong logistics that provide good user experiences and good service. So can you tell me how different technologies are helping to shape, the type of service you provide? I know AI and AR is one of them. So Brett, if you could tell me a little bit more about how AI and AR, pardon me, is being leveraged to provide the service level that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's a great call, Patricia. We acquired a company that Paras mentioned earlier, Stream Technologies, a Portland-based startup in the latter part of 2019. And really Stream is an augmented reality company, but also anchored on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And as you think about what you're referencing is how does that machine get smarter and smarter, and it gets smarter and smarter with data. And we've been in the home warranty industry for 50 years, have a lot of data as it relates to the home. And how do you move that to where you can use it to be proactive with the homeowner, and also take the technology out of it, right? Great technology fades to the background and doesn't become too techy like we all can talk here today, but that a homeowner understands the value of what a Stream experience is. And what I mean by that is, hey, before we even roll a truck, can we create a Stream session using an iOS device or Android device without even downloading an app, and launch a Stream session to a homeowner that is having a problem with a refrigerator? And we can understand make, model, serial number, optical character recognition, fault code detection, and also even understanding a broader problem. Could that be a self-fix? Could it be as simple as an ice maker reset? Or is it as complex as that we need to dispatch a technician who is actually going to pull off that back panel of a refrigerator, which is a very complicated fix? But also, once you understand that problem, once you solve that problem, you're going to dispatch the right technician with the right part, and also doing work on a GE refrigerator is very different than doing work on a Sub-Zero refrigerator. And that it may seem, wow, that sounds simple, but it's really not. You get different trades that are skilled in different skill sets. And when you start to compile a lot of that data, the machine gets smarter and smarter. And so you start to have less touch and less effort from the homeowner, because we can actually start to understand, hey, we know the behavior there, or in a non-creepy way, right? But that we're understanding, hey, are we putting the right part on the right truck with the right technician at the right time? That lowers cycle times. Are you leveraging machine learning and AI to work, and I'd say not control, I'd use the word partner with OEMs and other manufacturers or parts suppliers that, via API and developers working together, that you're shortening the cycle time of that part. Do you have the right part in stock? Because we know the volume or we know what is breaking at a higher rate, and sharing that with OEM partners so that they become better manufacturers and we all learn together. That's truly how you change and shape an industry. And even as something as simple on AR, let's say that refrigerator is completely dead. It needs to be replaced, and they're covered. With the stream technology, you can now measure depth, height, and width to make sure you have the right fit for that refrigerator. Or even leverage a partner of ours like Lowe's and Best Buy. You can now drop in what that refrigerator would look like if you chose a different model. And now you can see through augmented reality what that refrigerator looks like in your kitchen before you even go pick it out at Lowe's or another retailer. So that's really transformational in this industry. We feel like we're really leading in that area and driving those changes. And it was really compounded with COVID-19 and the pandemic. And it really has been a tectonic shift in a good way for technicians and for our consumers to adopt that type of technology.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is really improving that information exchange between the homeowner and the technician and all the other ecosystem players that help to provide the service. And ultimately, that improves the accuracy of the service that's provided and, of course, the efficiency of the service that's being provided. But I do have a question from the audience, and either of you can take it. So let me just go ahead and read that now. It's, do they collect customer experience data? And I'm assuming they means front door. Who sees it, and do they put the results into action?
Pras, I'm happy to take that too. If it's referencing stream, the data that we're collecting is really applicable to the machine, right? There's no PII there. Or if we're taking any type of video or screenshot or spatial mapping, right? There's always blockage of any type of personal information. And putting that into action is, let's say we scan through OCR, make, model, serial number on a barcode within a refrigerator. That data can go into action in the sense that the machine is learning that make, model, and serial number had this fault code or this problem. And as you start to solve for that problem more and more, or understand the historical data, the algorithms and the AI start to tell you, oh, hey, that we see this breakage, or how do we prevent that and move from reactive to preventative maintenance? That's one application, and we could that question could also go in other ways, but I think it was probably more directed to stream. So I hope I answered your question.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you have something, Pierre?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we do, like Brett mentioned, right? We care about our customers' data extremely. That's the most important thing. What we do see is the historic data, at least in an anonymized manner, gives us a way to learn about the systems and their behaviors and their reliability factors at a much faster pace. So every time we want to, when a customer comes and says, I have this particular problem, our ability to work looking at using the wisdom of all the fixes we have done in the past and being able to use machine learning against that and be able to make a derivative to say, okay, this is the best course of action. I'm sure as any one of you who has owned a home, you would realize calling a technician and you would have to explain what the refrigerator sound looks like, or whatever the sound of the appliance looks like when it is broken. But those are kind of things that you can actually use in a machine learning model and say, okay, that particular signature pattern means something, and we are able to make much more derivative data out of that and convert that raw data to information. And that's really what learning and intelligence is all about. And that's what our focus is. The information is pretty anonymized at several levels, and these are all experimental, right? This is where we want to get to, and other than that, we have all the standard historic data in our records, and we keep those for the purposes of making sure what that home looks like and make sure we can help the customer in the future.
Great, thank you, Paris. So of course, as our visionary speakers, before we go, I do want to ask you guys to just share your thoughts with us about what's the next phase of home services. How will home service needs evolve and service capabilities evolve? So if you would both just give brief insights on that, as we do have to wrap quickly, just share that with us, if you don't mind, please.
I can go first. I think we've touched upon some of that right now. The next generation of home and home maintenance is about AI. It's AI-driven home care and home services, bringing in data from different sources, and Front Door is really at the hub of it, where we talk to OEMs, we work with suppliers, we work with contractors, and throughout the entire geography of US. So what we see is this amalgamation of data and conversion to real to actionable intel is going to help us change the way home services are being done and really meet the customer where their needs are.
Great. Brent, did you have any final thoughts?
No, in the spirit of time, and I know we're out of time, thank you again. I think Paras nailed it, and I would say, especially with the pandemic, the home is even more, it's going to accelerate on the expectations of home services and how we take care of homeowners and their needs.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate both of you telling us a little bit more about Front Door and your vision for home services. It's very important information that you've shared, and we appreciate it very much. Next, we will transition to our executive Q&A, and that will be led by Elizabeth Parks, and it will feature Plume.
Welcome to Parks Associates' 25th Annual Connections Conference. We're hosting
the Connected Consumer Podcast. Hi, my name is Rosie Alpino, and I'm one of the hosts for Parks Associates' new podcast, The Connected Consumer. This podcast is all about Parks Associates' data-driven market insights on emerging consumer technology products and services, featuring our talented analyst team and industry leaders bringing new and innovative products to the market. In this podcast, you'll get an inside look at the latest industry trends focused on the connected consumer, home automation and security, energy management, connected health and independent living, and digital content and video services. In our very first episode, we will take a trip down memory lane through the history and evolution of Parks Associates. This year, Parks Associates is celebrating its 35th year in business and its 25th year hosting Connections, which is our signature event focused on the connected home.
The Connected Consumer Podcast.
Welcome back. That was a great session. Thank you so much, Patrice, for sharing those insights and a really interesting conversation with Front Door. We're happy to be back. My name's Elizabeth Parks. I'm the president of Parks Associates, and I'm excited to bring to you a executive Q&A session focused on home services driving value and the user experience. Today with me, I have joining Todd Grantham, Chief Marketing Officer of Plume, who's going to be joining us today, talking a little bit more about connectivity, the role of Wi-Fi and broadband in the home, and really the growth of smart home devices and the impact that's having on the network. So Todd, thank you so much for being here today. It's great to see you.
Good morning. Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So nice to see you too. Let's go ahead and start with a quick introduction of your role and what you're working on at Plume.
Sure, thanks. I joined Plume a couple years ago when we were limited to establish the middle order go-to-market model, and had very significant customers such as Comcast and Liberty Global, Bell in Canada, and really marketing was about coming in and expanding.
Todd, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
Hey Todd, sorry, let me interrupt you real quick. I think we're having a little bit of an audio issue. So if you can hold on 1 second and see if we can have you refresh your page.
Sure, I'll hit refresh here.
Hold on with us just for a sec while we bring him back in, see if we can get this audio going in the right direction. He's back. I do have a question from the audience. How do you see working with utilities as a channel to increase smart home adoption?
Got the panel's perspective, the builder's perspective. Now let's see what the audience was thinking. How big a challenge is interoperability?
Someone submitted a question. What is the take for managed Wi-Fi services?
I'd like to divert from my next question to kind of cut to one of our audience questions. What type of content do you feel most likely to drive MVPD subscription and retention?
We did have a question in from our audience though, so let me jump over here real quick. Have you or are you thinking about solutions around employee privacy?
We have a lot of questions coming in. I kind of want to dovetail on one of them. Can you talk about how you kind of view the pay TV business model?
Just a reminder to our attendees, you are able to ask questions in the live discussion button, which should bring up the panel, and there's a Q&A tab.
the Connected Consumer Podcast.
Hi, my name is Rosie Alpino, and I'm one of the hosts for Parks Associates' new podcast, The Connected Consumer. This podcast is all about Parks Associates' data-driven market insights on emerging consumer technology products and services, featuring our talented analyst team and industry leaders bringing new and innovative products to the market. In this podcast, you'll get an inside look at the latest industry trends focused on the connected consumer, home automation and security, energy management, connected health and independent living, and digital content and video services. In our very first episode, we will take a trip down memory lane through the history and evolution of Parks Associates. This year, Parks Associates is celebrating its 35th year in business and its 25th year hosting Connections, which is our signature event focused on the connected home.
The Connected Consumer Podcast.
Okay, so welcome back. And the irony of having broadband and connectivity issues with our executive Q&A speaker, we need a little bit more time to troubleshoot this. So we have a couple of our sponsors we're going to feature now, and then we will move directly into our interactive panel at 12:15, and we will be bringing Todd back from 1:15 to 1:45 in place of our networking session. So this is a really important conversation. We want you to come back and join us. And until then, please watch what we have now and come back for the interactive session at 12:15, and we will see you soon. Thanks for your patience.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by Ann Ferguson, who's the Vice President of Marketing with Alarm.com. Hi, Ann, how are you?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm doing very well. Good to see you today.
Good to see you as well. Thanks so much for sharing your time and insights with us today. We wanted to learn from Alarm.com's perspective, from your perspective, what industry and consumer trends you're seeing that are really shaping the residential security space right now.
There are so many. It's really been an exciting time to be in this space because there are so many technological advances happening at the same time. Consumers are really ramping up their adoption of security and smart home services. So really exciting time to be in this space. And a couple of the things that we've seen evolving over the last year plus, and that we think will continue for the next year, are around things like thinking beyond just perimeter protection. So historically, as consumers thought about security, it was primarily around protecting the outside of their home and making sure bad guys didn't get into the home. But increasingly, smart home services are able to help consumers protect everything inside the home as well, and to understand what's happening inside the home. So whether it's protection from water damage and leaks or mold in the home, for example, they're just new ways of thinking about protection beyond just that very traditional sort of perimeter protection, which is obviously still very important. Another area of tremendous growth, I think not surprisingly, has been in video. Certainly, newer cameras and technologies like video analytics that make video services so much more useful for consumers have really helped to drive demand. And certainly, the doorbell camera has been a tremendous new use case for consumers, and the adoption of that service has just been, I think, beyond what really anyone would have imagined. But what that's done is it's also gotten consumers thinking about other ways that video can be useful. And in particular, we're seeing an increased adoption and excitement around other interior video use cases. So, similar to what I was saying about security, video for a long time was just used for exterior perimeter protection. But now, especially these days, when a lot of us are still at home, we are working from home, we are schooling our children from home, thinking about indoor video use cases where I can do things like be in one room of the house, but quickly use video to check in and make sure that my kids are actually online and in school the way that they should be. A year ago, that's not something that I would have considered, and now it's invaluable to me. So I think we're starting to see a lot more in the way of utility around interior video use cases. And then one of the last areas that really has an impact on everything that we're doing is thinking about the impact of AI and how that is fueling so much in the way of efficiency and greater usefulness of smart home and security services. And I'll just give one quick example. One of the features that Alarm.com offers is called unexpected activity alerts. And with that feature, the system in the home starts to learn what normal patterns look like. And then when anything unusual happens, you'll automatically get an alert about that. So for example, early on in COVID, actually, it was one of the first days that we were home, I got an unexpected activity alert that my patio door had opened in mid-afternoon, around 2 o'clock, I think. And that was very unusual. That wouldn't have normally happened on a weekday, but the system recognized that was unusual and immediately let me know. And the great thing about that is I didn't have to set up a whole lot of complex rules to get that notification. The system just automatically knew, and it was able to understand what was normal. And when something unusual happened, it let me know very quickly. So again, just an incredibly useful feature, and something that is a good example of how AI is really making smart home more useful, accessible, and I think safer for consumers as well.
Yeah, one of the knocks on the earlier generation of smart home solutions is that they may have been connected but not smart yet.
Yeah.
So, are you seeing the technology evolve such that it is becoming more intuitive and intelligent, and really solving some pain points for consumers?
Absolutely. And that's, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of where AI can really be beneficial for consumers. One of the other things that we've seen really significant adoption of has been a feature called Scenes, where it's very simple, but it's just a single tap in the app that allows multiple different things to happen at the same time. So, for example, a wake up scene, I can simply tap in the app, and then I can have relevant doors unlock, the security system can disarm, certain lights can turn on. And it just makes it easier. That's one tap instead of 4 or 5 taps. And I can customize those scenes very specifically to my home, my family, and to our needs. So, rather than having to open up 5 different apps to do 5 different things, I've got this singular experience where all the different smart devices are working in concert with one another to deliver a great experience for me.
Yeah, and that ease of use and the customization is really where the rub has come, because no household's the same, no house layout is the same. Different households have different numbers of household family members, and so trying to make it easy to customize is really a difficult thing. Well, what do you think the next phase in the smart home looks like?
I think it's going to be a continued evolution of bringing more and more into the fold. If we go back probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't think that most of us in the security industry could have imagined that we would be talking about water protection solutions, for example, or connected car solutions. But we really are able to take so many different mission critical systems in the home, and now even with something like car outside of the home, and connect them all together. And we're really excited to continue to see that happening.
Yeah, that ecosystem does seem to continue to grow and expand and push the boundaries of what's included in the smart home. So very exciting to watch. Thank you, Anne, for joining us today and giving us a little bit of your thoughts of how this market is shaping and growing. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk with you.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elizabeth Parks, and I'm the president of Parks Associates. And I'm excited to be here with Stephen Eyre, vice president of the Calix Partner Community, one of our research partners for our 25th annual Connections Conference. The role of broadband and the network can't be underscored enough these days, and we're excited to take a few minutes to hear more about Calix. Let's go ahead and start with a short introduction of yourself and the Calix solution.
Happy to and delighted to be here, Elizabeth. So thanks for Parks for having me here and giving us some time to talk about Calix. So Calix Cloud and software platforms enable service providers of all types and sizes to really innovate and transform their businesses. Our customers utilize real-time data and insights from Calix platforms to really simplify their businesses and deliver experiences that excite their subscribers. It's really all about that subscriber experience. The resulting growth in subscriber acquisition, loyalty, and revenue creates more value for their businesses and their community. Our customers utilize real-time data and insights from Calix platforms to really simplify their businesses and deliver experiences that excite their subscribers. It's really all about that subscriber experience. The resulting growth in subscriber acquisition, loyalty, and revenue creates more value for their businesses and their communities, something I know you want to talk about today. My role in the company is to work across Calix to continue to grow our partnering muscle and work with the amazing partners that we have to build a really vibrant ecosystem that enriches both the partners and our customers.
Well, great. Thanks for that introduction. And certainly the last year has been a crazy one. And even leading up to the pandemic, there have been many changes in terms of consumers' use of broadband and the growth of connected devices in the home. Can you share from your perspective some of the latest industry and consumer trends that are shaping the smart home market?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. And I think for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to want to divide it into 3 chapters in this book. I think the before COVID chapter is one that folks are very familiar with. Parks does a magnificent job of helping us all understand what's been happening. Obviously, COVID is a massive interrupt, and most of the energies have been really around surviving this global pandemic. So what I'd like to focus on is life after COVID, sort of starting in Q4, the fall of 2021, and the years that follow that. And so at Calix, what we see when we look over that landscape is first and foremost, obviously, continual funding and continued funding from all quarters into the broadband market. So that's obviously government funding. We've seen a lot of that in the US, but private equity funding, sovereign wealth fund, individuals, money coming out of mattresses and sofas. Really, anybody who's looking for long-term returns understands that broadband is where to put your next best dollar and to invest there. So we're seeing lots of investments continuing. Those drive the next major trend, which is, of course, fiber deployments. And those are magnificent in and of themselves, particularly in underserved communities. But really, the way we think about them is by way of analogy, the railroad investments that happened in the US and the highway investments that happened that really catalyzed growth. These are catalytic agents for investments and entrepreneurship and innovation that we see will really catch hold. A lot of what we're seeing also focuses on more and more subscriber experiences proliferate in the home. If there's one thing that the post-pandemic world will have, we certainly believe is a richness of experience in the home. One of the major areas we're looking at is, of course, the work at home, work from home, SOHO market, and what that looks like. There are obviously some massive disruptions happening in health and education. Again, back to what's happening in the home. both staying in the home longer, greater enabling technologies in the home, legislation that has changed that enables more home healthcare, as well as education advancements in the really the structure of how education is delivered and consumed. And then there's a very interesting macro phenomenon we see that is sort of the rise of what we're calling Zoom cities. And that is, as people discover that is enabled by broadband, you can work anywhere, municipalities, local cities are fighting for the people moving out of the big urban centers and back into the smaller rural communities and enabling that through fiber. And there's a real fight for talent and people as people come back out of those more densely populated areas. And so this Zoom city phenomenon, we think, is really quite transformative. And that's why as a company, we focus on both sides of that equation, the connection side, the enablement side, the fiber side, and the subscriber experience side. So those are the big trends that we see shaping things going forward.
Well, that's great. And there certainly is a blurring of lines between home life and work life. And that is certainly an area Parks Associates has been spending a lot of time doing research on remote work, as well as the SMB markets and how they're going to help enable their workforce to perhaps maintain some of those remote work capabilities. Let's shift a little bit and talk about the role of technology and how that can impact ultimately the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And here again, we see a few discrete phenomena that we think are driving. First and foremost is the evolution of connectivity and the importance of it, whether it's fiber per se and actually fiber and all that it will do, as well as Wi-Fi in the home and the advances of Wi-Fi 6 and then 6E. At Calix, we're in our 4th generation Wi-Fi 6 gateway because we were very early on this bus and understood the importance of driving Wi-Fi, particularly Wi-Fi 6 in the home. So that connectivity phenomenon is really important that we see driving. Again, back to subscriber experience evolution. Speaking of the smart home, really to us, and I know all the people listening understand how fraught that term is. You know, smart home is about devices, and it's a conversation about the home. We really see the focus turning to the needs of the people in the home, solutions that really solve human problems and make living and working at home far easier. And that's going to be the emphasis as we look forward. And it takes both that connectivity and experience together in a way that is easy, reliable, and managed, which is why we believe strongly these are solutions delivered through and by our broadband service provider customers. And that's why we're aligned on those two halves of the story and enabling that particular community, our customers.
Well, in complete agreement that it's all about the experience, and ultimately the consumer or the business is at the end of that. And so technology is really enabling new applications and services to be delivered that consumers do value and certainly have a willingness to pay for. Our research is showing that as well. We know that some of these shifts moving forward will be permanent, and perhaps more changes will come, as you've noted previously, even with housing and where people are living and how they're working. But can you share, in looking ahead, a little bit more about what your view is for the next phase of the smart home?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, and clearly this is a major focus for us at Calix. Again, just to reiterate, the fundamental reality is that high-speed broadband driven by fiber is a sine qua non of the modern home. I mean, you must have high-speed, reliable broadband in your home, and that's driving a lot of the experiences and a lot of, frankly, home selection. The second is we see finally, and perhaps it's a decade, maybe it's half a decade, hopefully it's not a couple of decades, where the smart home itself goes away, and we're really focusing on the home, just the home. What does a home, modern home, look like? That would be lovely. Finally, we think there'll be a détente between the explosion of technology and the possibilities that that brings and the privacy and security that everybody really wants. Those two are at war right now. We see that settling down. But ultimately, the consumers will tell us what they want. And we track that very, very constantly. And we will be in a position, hopefully, with our broadband service provider customers to deliver what they're asking for.
Well, that's great, Stephen. That will have to be the last word. I want to thank you for your time today and also thank Calix for your support of the Connections Conference again, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Welcome to Parks Associates' 25th Annual Connections Conference. We're hosting sessions throughout the year, but this week features big conversations on the state of the industries we cover and officially marks our 25th anniversary of hosting this awesome event. My name is Elizabeth Parks, and I'm the president of Parks Associates. We want to thank you for joining us and supporting our event this year. Executive conferences have always been a part of Parks Associates' core business, bringing together leadership of companies developing services and products and driving innovation in the connected home, smart home, entertainment, security, connected health, support services, digital media, and OTT pay TV services. Over the past few decades, Parks Associates has worked with thousands of companies, sharing our knowledge and insights conducted throughout millions of responses from consumers. Our goal is to provide clients and the industries we serve with the best in consumer and market insights. We cover emerging technologies and specifically the impact and opportunities as ecosystems overlap. 35 years ago, Tricia Parks founded Parks Associates after working as VP of Research for another firm called Future Computing. The initial focus of Parks Associates was within the computing sector, with an emphasis in understanding the diffusion of computing technologies, specifically the PC, in consumers' homes. As a consumer researcher, she had a vision for how technology could change the way we live and work. Tricia grew Parks Associates slowly and independently, covering the consumer tech markets and adding expertise in broadband technologies and adoption, home networking and residential gateways, utility deregulation and consumer choice, home controls, and entertainment, with a vision of mass market adoption for technologies, creating a whole home technology experience for consumers with integration across the various ecosystems in the home. When Connections was hosted for the first time in 1996, we called it the Residential Gateway and Home Networking Conference, before settling on the final name Connections in 1998. But with a tagline that has changed over the years with the growth and innovation of technology, we started with enabling the networked home, then went through a few more tagline changes, including in-home networking and gateways, the International Home Networking and Gateways Conference, the Digital Home Conference, and the Digital Living Conference. And for the past few years, we have maintained the event tagline, the Premier Connected Home Conference. In 2006, we started hosting Connections Europe in order to address key issues for the European markets. Throughout the years, we have talked about the adoption of broadband, the distribution of technology products, and the consumer demand. And the residential gateway, the home network, and broadband have always been at the center of the conversation. The technology enabling these products to deliver on their promise has always been at the heart of our conversation. Also, the partnerships, new relationships between ecosystem players, and the entrance of the tech giants in the past decade have been critical to understanding the evolution of the connected home. More importantly, though, is our focus on the consumer and the adoption and intentions consumers have to bring and pay for these new technologies in their homes. Our research is the backdrop of everything we do and leads our analysis and insights that we share at our events. One thing that has not changed is our desire to bring you leading industry insights from our talented research and analyst team, and from leading experts from top companies in these fields. Our team is ready to connect and learn more about your company's offerings. Thank you for joining us today and for the last 25 years. We look forward to the connections that await.
Hi,
I am Patrice Samuels, Senior Analyst at Parks Associates, and I'm joined today by Fritz Werder, who is the GM of Tuya. Now, today, Fritz will be telling us a little bit more about Tuya and what the company does in the space and his role at the company, and also give us his perspective on the smart home market and the smart home industry in general and where that's going. Does that sound good, Fritz?
That sounds great. Thanks so much,
What?
Patrice.
Wonderful. So why don't we kick it off by, you giving us an understanding, a deeper understanding of Tuya and, how Tuya sort of fits into the smart home space in general.
Absolutely. And first of all, thanks again, Patrice, for the introduction. And we appreciate the opportunity to participate in this Parks Associates event, the Connections event. So thank you. As Patrice said, my name is Fritz Werder. I'm the General Manager and Head of North America for Tuya. We are a leading global IoT platform provider. Our businesses really fall under kind of three distinct go-to-market strategies. So the first business is our operating system business, where we help brands enable smart devices and services. And so we provide a suite of services to those brand partners. The first thing is around cloud services. So those are all the different commands and controls for devices, scenes and automations, data analytics, integrations with other platforms such as voice control. So all of the relevant cloud services. Second is around the wireless connectivity. So we work with many of the major silicon providers and have created a series of plug and play IoT modules with their radios that also include our operating system on it. And then we do app development work for brands as well, everything from a really quick, inexpensive reskin of apps all the way up to highly customized, fully differentiated app experiences. So that all together, along with doing, developing customized voice skills for brands, we work with all different types of brand partners across lighting, electrical, security, health and fitness, small appliances, large appliances, consumer products, toys, etc. So we help them develop those products, and then we can either introduce them to factories that can build the solutions, or we can plug into their existing factories and supply chains and get them up to speed and help them be effective. So that's the first business. The second one is a software as a service, platform as a service business, and that's subscription based. And we have 4 different vertical market solutions that we're delivering. One of them is in the home security space, one in the smart apartment area, also hospitality, and then one in commercial lighting. And again, these are for either large end users, brands, service providers that are looking to create recurring revenue or service-based businesses. And then finally, we also work with developers of all different shapes and sizes, from hobbyists to professional oriented developers to engineering service companies that want to use our self-service, low code, no code IoT platform to be able to build and deliver solutions for their clients. So all different types of developers in that community.
Wow. So it sounds like your company is providing just a lot of the backbone of the smart home products and services that a lot of us currently enjoy in our homes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting. Lots of great opportunity, lots of interesting customer engagements every day. So the diversity is really unbelievable, and the rate of change is exciting.
Speaking of rate of change, let's talk a little bit more about the smart home. Let's dive a little deeper into that topic in particular. So, can you talk a little bit more about just some of the industry and consumer trends that you think have really shaped the smart home market and sort of getting us to where we are today?
Sure, absolutely. I think there's a number of dynamics that have been in play. I've been involved in the industry for quite a few years, and certainly within the last number of years, I think everyone recognizes the impact that voice control has had on the industry overall. It's really accelerated smart home adoption. It's opened new user experiences. It's created new value and ease of use for customers. So I don't know that you can have any sort of conversation around smart home without talking about the impact voice has had as a user interface over the last couple of years. Another one I think is just within, the last year or so, given the pandemic, more of a channel impact, but certainly digital transformation was happening everywhere and e-commerce was an important channel, but the pandemic really accelerated that by a number of years. And so as we look out at brand partners and the way they're providing a frictionless customer experience, whether it's in a B2C channel or whether it's in a B2B environment, the ability to deliver connected product solutions via e-commerce shopping has been a big boost. I mean, both in terms of how customers research products, are aware of solutions, are able to compare solutions, and then drive for adoption. So that would be another one. A third, I would say, is just the impact of subscription-based services on the industry. I think that whole idea of software as a service has really accelerated and grown a number of companies. Particularly, it started in the security space with monitoring and RMR businesses that generate, whether it's video storage, whether it's central monitoring. There's a number of businesses that are built around recurring revenue models, and so I would say that's a third one, is how that's really helped accelerate businesses in the area of smart home.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Quick change to the agenda in case you're just joining us. Instead of having or networking discussion after the interactive panel discussion, we're going to try to bring back our speaker from Plume. So we will go ahead and have our interactive panel discussion now with two of our panelists. And then instead of the networking discussion afterwards, we're going to have our executive Q&A with Plume. We're really trying to work through some technical issues right now, and we're having a bit of trouble bringing our speakers in. So we're going to go ahead and get started for the panel discussion that we'll be having today. We have a couple of speakers. We have Alfred Bentley from VIP HomeLink, and we also have Fritz Werder, who you just saw in the sponsor video there, from Tuya. So we're going to kick it off with some brief introductions from Alfred and then from Fritz, and then we'll get into our panel discussion. After the panel discussion, then or official panel questions, then we'll take questions from the audience. So we invite you to submit your questions while we have these two panelists. Let's make it as interactive as possible. And we'll go ahead now with our introduction from Alfred. Go ahead, Alfred.
Patrice, first of all, thanks so much for having us. Really, really appreciate it and glad to be with you today. So just a quick little introduction to VIP HomeLink. We're a digital home management solution and also an engagement solution for the homeowner. Our focus is to really revolutionize the homeownership experience and make things as easy as possible for homeowners. So ultimately what we do is we work to help homeowners through engagement, through enablement, and through empowerment, really to help to prevent the preventable while also saving homeowners a lot of time and money. So as we can see up here in this slide, a lot of our focus is really on empowerment. So when we look at the interactive app experience, we are a full suite of digital solutions. However, we are based in the app, and the app, the way the app works is we have an individual homeowner or member profile as well as a home profile. Makes it very, very easy for the member to set up their profile and their home profile. And as a result of putting in some basic information over the course of a couple minutes, we're actually able to tailor reminders and recommendations to the individual homeowner. We love getting testimonials and we love hearing feedback. Oh, I didn't even know that I needed to do that. Sometimes we hear, oh, I didn't even know that I had that in my house. So we really have this great opportunity to help to educate and inform homeowners. We absolutely love doing that. We also have a very, very deep and expansive multimedia content library, which is, it's neat the way that it works. Based on your profile as a homeowner and your profile as a home, we're able to match the right content. So you're not getting fire hosed with a whole lot of different content in all things house. It's the things that matter most to you. And we find that that really ups the level of engagement. The other thing which we just launched on the heels of an acquisition, which we did back in March, which we're really excited about, is the virtual home checkup. Virtual home checkup is about a 20-minute video walkthrough in the house. We've completed many of them, gotten rave reviews. One of the exciting parts about that is we've actually caught a lot of things which were kind of ticking time bombs, which we were able to address before they actually became an insurance claim or meant that somebody needed to go move in with the in-laws for a few weeks as, the fire or the flood got fixed up. So that's been really, really exciting for us. So overall, from a member benefits point of view, we find that the members are often better organized. They get to prevent the preventable, and overall the home's efficiency and safety and value are all increased. So it's our goal through partnership with other companies to help as many homeowners as possible and improve the homeownership experience. So I hope that background helps.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's a very, very innovative, but I think very important company and business structure there. And certainly one of the things we've been hearing all morning as we're talking about home services is just the importance of that proactive element. So very important service, Albert. And now we're gonna bring in Fritz Werder from Tuya. Fritz, are you here? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi there. Hi, Patrice. Can you hear me now?
Yes, hearing you. Perfect.
Thank you. Excited to be part of this panel as well, and just want to congratulate the Parks team again on their 25th Connections anniversary. So congratulations. Again, my name is Fritz Werder. I'm the general manager of Tuya North America, or Tuya Smart for North America. Some of this may be a little redundant as you were just playing the sponsorship video, but Tuya is a leading global IoT cloud platform provider. We connect intelligent needs of consumers, manufacturers, brands, service providers, retailers. We have thousands of brand partners who've launched more than 300,000 unique connected SKU products on our platform, and our cloud services are processing billions of messages daily. Our go-to-market strategy really includes 3 different types of customer engagements. First is our platform operating system business, where we provide the cloud services, the wireless connectivity, the module solutions, mobile app development, things like data analytics, voice skill creation, and much, much more for brands that are looking to develop or source smart products and services. So really, we help with that first business. Brands bring to life their smart products across many different categories, whether that's lighting, electrical, security, appliances, health, entertainment, and more. So that's the first business. The second one, we've developed different software as a service and platform as a service solutions that can be branded for customers that are looking to build recurring revenue opportunities or service-based businesses. And these include solutions for areas such as multifamily, hospitality, residential security, commercial lighting. And these platforms, they can be branded for the service provider, for the large end user, like a property manager, or device brands that are looking to really go beyond just that initial product transaction sale. And then finally, we work with all different types of developers, from hobbyists to professional engineering companies that want to use our low code or no code toolkits, such as our SDKs and APIs, to build out solutions for their clients. So I guess in summary, Tuya, we make IoT easy. We provide a complete ecosystem to our partners that allow them to get to market quickly, achieve significant cost reduction, whether that's NRE or operational costs, such as their cloud management, expand easily into new categories, and help them with supply chain related assistance and introductions to our thousands of factory partners. So thanks again for this opportunity to be part of the conversation.
Great, thank you, Fritz. And certainly you're enabling a lot of the services that we'll be talking about today. So great fit there for this panel. So as I mentioned, everyone, let's make this interactive. So we're gonna actually get into the panel questions now, but first I wanna kick it off with a poll question that you guys can answer. So if you look at the discussion tab, I think it's the poll tab in your discussions area panel right next to the right of your screen, you will see our poll question for this session. If you would take just a couple of seconds to answer the poll and share your thoughts on which of these services you think have the strongest market opportunity today. And I'm sure all of these services do have a strong market opportunity, in everybody's eyes, but we're looking at the one that have the strongest market opportunity today. So while you go ahead and get your votes in, I'm going to direct the same question over to Alfred and Fritz. So Alfred and Fritz, we're looking at independent living, we're looking at in-home package delivery services, energy, HVAC, and indoor air quality services, as well as tech support, networking, and warranty services, all of which I kind of touched on earlier in my presentation. So share your thoughts as well, and we'll see how that sort of compares to what the audience thinks. But which of these services do you think is in the highest demand, or there's the greatest need for right now in the home?
Fritz, I may have to defer this one to you because I have an incredibly diplomatic response for which one of the four I'm going to pick. So should I let you lead off?
Please go ahead. Start us
All right.
off.
Well, the way that we look at it generally as a company, and this is based on a lot of the research that we've done, we don't see one area breaking out without the complement and without the synergistic support of the other ones. We see this more as a level of the ocean that's going to be the result of increased engagement, increased awareness, and a little bit of there's kind of this beautiful thing going on right in the market right now where innovation is going so fast, but there's a lot of times where what we see is there's homeowners who are trying very, very hard to catch up. And there's some homeowners which are in part of the market who are stepping in small ways and getting involved, and potentially that might be in monitoring, that might be a little bit in setting up some technology and smart home from an independent living point of view for a parent. What we see is once the adoption starts, I think it's going to be a level of the ocean for those four boats as we look at those four categories. We work really, really hard to kind of close that awareness and engagement gap because people are excited about it. But what we're seeing is there's this opportunity to take that excitement and passion that people have about smart and actually convert it into something that's fully actionable, where when they're at a cocktail party, they could say, I just installed this in my house, and they've got all these cool stories about it. So that's kind of the way that we're looking at it. I apologize if that is a diplomatic way of saying all four.
It's the easy way out, right? So you're saying once the adoption starts, then all services will take off generally at the same level. So right now, today, if I'm understanding you correctly, it doesn't seem like anyone has really, gained that sort of mass market adoption in the home. But once they start, which will, be the direct result of increased awareness and so on, then adoption of all of them will really soar.
Technology and innovation has way outpaced the totally accessible market. It's actually a great spot for everyone and the stakeholders to be in as well, too, because there's just so much opportunity to make homes that much smarter. It's just a matter of having the rubber meet the road with the decision makers and the folks who are ultimately going to say, I see why that matters to me. I must have that.
Okay. All right. Well, let me hop on over to you then, Fritz. Are you going to take the easy way out as well, or do you have stuff that you're definitely seeing as having a strong need in the home right now?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, I am in the same camp as Alfred as a platform provider that we like all services. Having said that, I would say that independent living is one that really jumps out to me. As we look, people are aging, at an unprecedented rate right now. Seniors are soon expected to outnumber younger people for the first time in history. We saw last year the COVID pandemic really overwhelmed assisted living communities and nursing homes across the country, and really then created a surge in demand for independent living as seniors were looking to really stay in their own homes and continue on. So I think, as you mentioned, Patrice, early on in your intro, more consumers 65 and plus want to remain and live independent. And I think technology really can help in that transition as people continue to age. People of all ages are looking for technology solutions that can deliver comfort, security, entertainment. And there are a ton of potential and valuable use cases around independent living. If you think about the individual, there's fire notifications, there's HVAC monitoring, energy monitoring, there's fall detection that's part of that, sleep monitoring, pathway lighting around safety, medication monitoring, location tracking, access control with hands-free, water and leak detection, air quality. I mean, there's so much here. It's really an exciting space that has just a ton of use cases. And I think the more that either service providers, brands, companies can bundle these services together and justify the subscription prices, it's really a good area. Home package delivery, I also think is great. I think it's exploded due to the shelter in place and the growth of e-commerce. We've seen a lot of it around the MDU space in particular, but also in single family homes. In MDUs, there's the notification piece, there's the storage as packages were building up, and then the retrieval part of it. So there's a lot of opportunity in several of these use cases, but I particularly like independent living.
Absolutely, and you mentioned bundles of the different pieces of independent living, because there's certainly a number of different services that can be built that is all falls under that independent living umbrella. So I think importantly though, bundling it with the safety and security elements, because when we look at the data, what we're seeing is that the safety and security elements of independent living just has a slight edge, but then afterwards we do see, approximately 20% of these consumers aged 65 years and older showing an interest in all the other services that you mentioned, the monitoring, the fall detection, all of those. So I think bundle is important, but having that security and safety piece will be an important part of any independent living service. So let's actually skip on over and see what the audience actually thinks and see how consistent it is with what you guys are saying. So it's actually pretty consistent with what you're saying, Fritz. So we're seeing where 38%, which is the majority, is saying that independent living is where they are seeing the strongest demand today. Then we're seeing where 33% of the audience thinks, energy, HVAC, and indoor air quality monitoring is kind of a close second at 33%. And then 29% believe that tech support and warranty is the one that's in highest demand. So it's a pretty good split. The only one there that did not get much love from the audience was asset monitoring and in-home package delivery. So that's where they kind of differ from you a little bit. But what I'm seeing, or what I'm taking away from what the audience is saying, is that a lot of these services, which supports kind of Alfred's point now, a lot of these services will have a significant opportunity to really just gain traction as soon as consumers are comfortable with the technologies, as soon as the technologies are working as they should. Great. So, all right, so we see where independent living then is one of the services that we're kind of collectively agreeing that is going to be, one of the ones that are going to be important going forward. So can we talk about, what is driving these services? I know you did say, Fritz, that of course the senior population is growing, but is there anything else that you can think of that's really driving the growth here, or driving the demand for these services? And Alfred, you can go to it if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, there's some of the same trends that are driving smart connected products overall. I mean, voice control and voice assistance have created a huge tailwind just overall for smart use cases. And so that, regardless of age, I think people want to be able to use hands-free capabilities. I think some of the more straightforward, simple products like perimeter security, and having that peace of mind has been a big driver of adoption, including in the independent living environment. Comfort around HVAC controls is another one, of being able to have preset scenes for comfort throughout their home. Lighting is a big one. Lighting for security, being able to show when you're not home, make it look like your home is lived in. If you're on vacation or just never coming home to a dark house is another application around lighting for security purposes. So I don't know that it's necessarily just all different around independent living. I think there are some broader connected living accelerators that are really kind of pushing the market forward.
Yeah, and also just the change in the mindset of our senior community. I mean, I think the data point that I quoted earlier was 90% 90% think it's important to live independently on their own for as long as possible. All right, did you have any thoughts, Alfred?
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen, and this was just a quick personal story. There was a major U.S. insurance carrier that said, "We think what you guys have is really, really great, but we're not going to do anything with you." And this is going back a year or maybe even a little bit longer than a year ago. We were really excited that we were in the game. And they said, "But you have to make it easy to set it up." And the lesson that we left that office with that day was, if it's not easy to set up, it's never going to work. So that was something where we had to retool the way that we made it easier to work with our platform. But in subsequent research, what we found to be one of the limiting variables is people will get excited. People will buy the product. They'll get the product to the house. But more often than not, if it ends up taking a longer period of time, and that's different for everyone, than they would have expected or they believed it should take, then a lot of folks end up bailing out on their journey to smart home ownership. So that's one of the big things. Along with that, a lot of vendors and a lot of folks and a lot of the people in the smart home ecosystem have done a fantastic job making it easier for things to get set up with less time, less technical ability, with less technical jargon being used in the setup. So we're seeing a strong correlation with the easier it is to set it up, the more likely someone is to recommend it, the more likely someone else is to use it.
Great, thanks for that. So we just talked about the drivers. Of course, I want to sort of balance that out by talking about the barriers a little bit. Now, each of the services that we talked about, and when I examined it, I think they all have sort of a unique barrier, really, that can potentially, not necessarily, but potentially, prevent them from growing or the growth that we anticipate they can have in the home in the future. So, for example, we know for independent living, yes, the community, those age 65 and older, are really interested in having these services. Yet at the same time, I saw a statistic recently that the majority of people who live on their own currently at this age do not have broadband services. And of course, we know that this is the core of independent living services. Then, of course, when we look at in-home package delivery, and I did present some information on this earlier too, we have a number of consumers who are just not, no matter how convenient it is, we have a tendency to think once things are convenient, then consumers are okay with giving up their privacy. But there's a huge segment of the population that's just not going to be comfortable with having a stranger enter their homes when they're not there. So I can see that as a potential barrier too that might impact that space. And also when we look at HVAC monitoring and energy monitoring, certainly there are alternatives in the market, such as smart thermostats that are already sort of monitoring on a level, the HVAC system and, providing some level of notification if it's not functioning optimally, which will give consumers insight into whether or not they need to do something about that. Then we have, smart plugs that are already being designed, being built with a lot of those energy monitoring capabilities. So there are a lot of, I would say, free alternatives then to a paid service to help you monitor these things. And the other one that we looked at was technical support. Now, this one too is complex because a lot of times what we find is that consumers assume that this should be free. There are a lot of companies that are willing to provide these services for free to sort of position themselves as sort of service leaders in the space. So if consumers are accustomed to receiving this service for free, then it's really going to be a difficult sell to now get them to pay for it. So the bottom line is that all these services have these unique barriers to getting them to mass market adoption, in my estimation. Can you talk about some of the other barriers that you're seeing, or the best ways you think we can overcome the barriers that I just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with what Alfred was just talking about a few minutes ago. I mean, for me, the number one barrier, at least in the case of independent living, is around user experience. If the user experience isn't simple, intuitive, flexible, adaptive, it's not going to be successful. And I think if you look at other service businesses that have thrived, you usually find a very simple, intuitive user experience as the foundation. So companies that fail to address user experience in a product or really, or a service, are really going to miss out on the market opportunity. And it's not just because the technology isn't good enough, but it's because the barriers to entry are going to be unnecessarily high for those users. We all know that most products over the years in the smart home area have really been kind of first and foremost for those technologists or those early adopters. And for somebody that is older in their years and trying to learn technology and maybe hasn't been exposed to it all of their life, we have to be a lot more empathetic and creative and thoughtful in design and approach, both on the hardware and the software side, to make solutions that are really able to meet the needs of the user. And some of the ways that the industry can get around these barriers, I think more ethnographic research to understand how those targeted customers are using those products and services. Certainly more partnerships between industry leaders to drive intuitive interface design. I mean, we've seen the explosion of growth around voice that I was talking about before, but there's still areas to improve it, to make it more natural oriented, where again, people that haven't been using it all their life don't know that they have to give a room command or a specific wake up call or whatever it is. So, and then removing the barriers around interoperability. There's been a lot of discussion this week around that. And I think, I totally agree that that's a number one driver just in connected things overall. On Tuya's standpoint, we're really working to incorporate home-based elderly care into our security SaaS offering, and we're focused on things such as motion and fall detection, sleep monitoring, smart medication management. So adding services into our existing security solution. But those are some of the things that I think the industry can do to overcome the barriers.
Great. Did you have any thoughts on in-home package delivery? That's one I'm personally very, very curious about. We see where package theft is definitely on the rise, but at the same time, online shopping is up significantly, especially during the pandemic. It became increasingly important for a lot of us. So, I mean, the thought there is that a lot of consumers are just not going to be comfortable with strangers entering their homes, even if they're being monitored. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think we'll probably get over it in the long term? What do you think, Fritz?
Well, I think it definitely depends on the environment. I think, as you correctly said, Patrice, I think in single family homes, people are reluctant to allow strangers to have access inside their home, but there are solutions coming out like storage containers and so forth that you talked about. We're seeing that a lot on the multifamily side, where there's this idea of storage lockers or some sort of structured connected locker that the delivery people can put packages. There's notifications to the tenants. They can go retrieve it in their own time safely and securely. So I do see it continuing to advance, but there are some real, I think, end user pushback around giving too much access to people inside their homes.
Yeah, got it. Alfred, do you have any thoughts on what the primary barriers will be to bringing these services to market?
Yeah, and I think it may actually be congruent with a consistent theme for me too. It's the awareness and understanding of the offerings and the benefits that it can have. I would really summarize it from our perspective as some of these are still the adoption rate is not all that high yet. There's still a hugely accessible market that can still be gone after. The challenge is a lot of times we see consumer behaviors change on the heels of the stories that make their way into market. It saved me 15 minutes not having to run to an Amazon Depot to pick up such and such because it was left inside the house. I felt more comfortable that it was left inside the house. There is still going to be the trust issue. There is still going to be the pet issue. So there's still going to be some other barriers that need to be overcome. But what we generally see is the early adopter cohort will make their way in once they start getting passionate about it and they feel that it's good enough for the rest of the market. That's when we usually see larger market adoption. All that being said, there's still a huge segment of that other portion of the market that if they had known about it, it's the type of thing that they would have said, I want that for my parents. I want that for my own home. So a lot of it does come down to awareness from our perspective too.
Great. I mean, certainly awareness is going to be a big part of it. We know that for sure. But what do you think about services like technical support and warranty services? I mean, those services have been around for a very long time, so consumers are definitely aware of those. And also, you know, energy monitoring. I mean, to an extent, they're fairly new, but consumers are familiar with the concept. And then, you know, their utilities or energy providers will, of course, help to drive that awareness as well. One of the major challenges, though, is the perception of value, you know, or whether or not I should be paying for this or it should be free. So do you see that as a barrier, or you know, consumers will recognize the value, you know, as these services are developed, you know, we'll leverage the technologies that we need to, and the benefits will be obvious to consumers. Is that what you think, or you think it's going to be a real challenge?
Well, as far as the warranties go, that's something that we've seen just based on our research, a lot of confusion over. If a major system in the house goes, is that something that I can call my insurance agent and file a claim for? And the answer is patently usually no. So we do spend a lot of time educating folks on home warranties and what the benefits are, and being able to flatten out some of those major budgetary spikes from having a material system within the house actually fail and go down unexpectedly. So that's something that I think that as more people know more about, there will be more uptake for that type of thing. It's just it's one of those areas where there's a lot of confusion as far as where does insurance begin and where does warranty step in. The other thing that we've been really excited about that we've seen, and this is based on our research and just from talking to our members, there's a lot more reliance on self-service tech support, because there's a lot of times where people are now saying, I don't want somebody to come into my house for all the reasons that we're all very familiar with everything going on with the pandemic. So there's a lot more people now saying, I'm going to give this a shot. And the information that's out there is getting better and better. If you looked 3 years ago, just about any video that told you how to fix something in your house was actually really just trying to sell you something. Now there is a lot more of those self-service types of DIY components, and we're actually working feverishly to try to get as many folks armed with that type of information as possible too.
Great. So again, the theme of meeting consumers where they are and providing the type of service, specific type of service that they're interested in is going to be important. All right. So I kind of touched on the value earlier and consumers' willingness to pay for these services, right? I mean, certainly traditionally, a lot of these types of services have fallen under the subscription type business models. But, you know, in talking through a lot of these, we're not quite sure if they're going to be able to stand on their own, you know, as a subscription service. You know, some might require bundles. As I mentioned, some consumers, you know, think these services should be free, so it might need to be tacked on to another service as sort of a value-added service. What do you think is the best business model to bring these services to market? And certainly we're looking at different services here, so you might have to be specific because different business models might work better for different services. So Fritz, if you want to talk a little bit more about what you think the best business models would probably be.
Yeah, I guess a couple things. I mean, number one, we're seeing a lot of our brand partners looking for new ways to monetize their IoT investments. So being able to deliver subscription services, provide them with predictable recurring revenue opportunities, and stickier customer relationships. Having said that, there are risks out there right now of fatigue around too many standalone subscription services that you know, people will just get bombarded with too many different variations. And so I think my overall belief is the more as an industry we can simplify it, make it easy, and try to bundle as much value as possible that are specific to those use cases like independent living, I think the better chance we are as an industry to have success. So I think it is possible to have certain services carved out and offered as standalone services, but I think the bigger, broader opportunity is to be able to deliver it as part of a solution, not just a single product or a single application. So, you know, whether it's tied to security, whether it's tied to energy or energy management or some other solution. I think being able to provide really a bundle of services that meet the needs of the end user is the way to go. So simplicity to me kind of trumps all. I think it's also when the service is fully contained by itself, I think you start to get it back to those barriers we talked about of now you've got problems of interoperability if they're not all using something that's interoperable. You've got challenges of automations across ecosystems and platforms. So I think there's a lot of that that you have to worry about, and I think we heard yesterday, for example, a lot of discussion around that of how to get beyond the whole works with piece and focus on it just work.
Yeah. Alfred, your thoughts?
So I'm gonna go down the same path as Fretz. I really like that. It does get down to partnerships, and it gets down to organizations working together. And the way that we've seen it in our market has been a D2C trust and a B2B trust. When you're partnered up and you're working in an alliance with another company and it becomes part of a solution, it's a whole lot easier for someone to say, I trust XYZ company. They're telling me that this is going to be good for me. My propensity to want to work with that other organization is better. And what we're seeing now is there's a little bit more of a collaborative environment out there, at least in the insurtech space and in the smart home space over the last couple of years, where folks are working more closely together, which is really exciting. For example, just to, a quick story, we went out at the market D2C. We realized we were going to have to spend $100,000 a month on advertising to get it out to help as many people as we wanted to. We started talking to a few insurance executives. They said, wow, you're going to save us billions of dollars next year, and you only cost a couple bucks a month. That's kind of insurance nirvana. And then as a result, through that partnership, we're able to help more people. And that's really how we measure our success. So it's that partnership, it's that larger solution. And we're not just seeing it, it's not just exclusive to Fritz and I, but this is something which we're seeing more people in the ecosystem work more collaboratively together. And I really do think that that's going to help to drive adoption too. I mean, we all need to fight like crazy to be as innovative as we possibly can. But when we see we work together, it makes it that much easier to get out to the market and help that many more people. So it's an exciting time in the space.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that partnerships are definitely going to be important in any of these services, even just bringing these services to market. If I want to offer a service bundle that include one of these services, I might not have all the capabilities to provide the services. So partnerships are important. But to your point, Alfred, then, you're saying basically, or in a sense that, consumers will trust a certain provider more than, say, a random company trying to offer these services. It's important to gaining that trust from consumers or that buy-in from consumers, right? So are you finding that is more important, that these partnerships are going to be more important for some services than others? So, for example, are consumers less likely to think that an independent startup company can save them on their energy than their energy provider? So do you think it will be more important for example, the energy services to come to market with partnerships, or maybe the independent living services come to market, and come in partnership with healthcare providers, or, any of these services? Will it be more important for some than others, is what I'm getting at.
I think generally where there's partnerships and where there's solutions, one of the ways in which the whole suite gets adopted is usually if there's not as many decision points. So if one independent living solution provider says, this is what we recommend, and somebody says, well, I now don't have to spend 18 hours Googling and researching and finding things out and being sold to. But sometimes if the package is delivered, there's a convenience factor. There's also a little bit of an accountability factor on the recommender. The recommender needs to be diligencing these partnerships as intensely as any one of the individual points. They need to go through and make sure that it's the right partnership. But once they find it, that's really what we've seen humbly as the best indicator of adoption. Can I speak to it as far as different industries and different spaces? It's a behavior that we've seen consistently. I don't know if there's one that we've seen much more than others. I do know in the insurance space, there's been a natural continuity. If we're protecting your home, let us protect some of your digital assets within your home as well. And it's a really good part of their follow through swing. So I can't say where it's not working, but I have seen some significant uptake in that space as well too.
Great. And this is a perfect segue to get to our first audience question, because it's directly connected to partnerships. So it's, what are your thoughts on the impact of tech giants on your products, either as a partner or a competitor? So tech giants typically the ones we look at primarily are Amazon, Google, Apple, and Samsung. I'm not sure if you look at them any different. So we're looking at the impact of tech giants on your products, And Fritz, you can go ahead if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, as a platform, global platform provider, all of those companies that you mentioned are big partners of ours. In some cases, we do compete in different areas, but certainly friendly competition. But we're in order to be successful, I think in this business, partnerships are absolutely critical. No one company is going to be able to deliver every piece of that user experience, every service that's going to be required. And we have lots of examples from companies like Noonlight that we're working with on the security side that are hyper laser focused around integrating first responder, police, and fire services. That's an important partnership for us to deliver that as part of a security software as a service solution to the big, obviously, cloud providers. We're agnostic to the cloud infrastructure, but AWS and Microsoft Azure, for example, in North America, provide that cloud infrastructure that our services ride on top of, and so they're huge partners. And with voice being the enabler, we're constantly developing voice skills for our brand partners. So these companies are very important relationships for us, and they're leaders in the market. And we definitely want to work closely with those larger tech companies because we think they provide value into the market, and with our complete ecosystem, we can leverage some of the great innovation that they've brought to market.
Great. So you're definitely seeing where partnerships with these tech giants are going to be important, or the way forward. Do you agree, Alfred?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things is, and I think this is in the same way, Fritz, that you look at them as well too. We're kind of cheering for them. The more they do, and the more they innovate, and the faster information can move around. I won't even say the easier it makes our job, but the more things that we can do to help them. So we're kind of collectively cheering for them. We're completely agnostic. We have members from all of those brands on our system, and so we have them as members, so we're excited about that. But overall, it's one of the things where the faster they innovate, the more we know we can do going out forward, and we don't see any of that slowing down, for sure.
Sure, and certainly with their significant marketing resources, they're helping to drive that awareness of these products and services in general. So Alfred, you talked a lot about awareness in the beginning, and then that is one of the key areas where I think they can come in. Even we see what happened with smart speakers and voice assistants. We had a lot of the other traditional smart home devices, or what we call traditional smart home devices, your smart door locks, your smart cameras. A lot of those were in the market prior to smart speakers, but we've seen where smart speakers have really come in and sort of outweighed the growth of those smart home devices, but also just consumers adopting smart speakers, I believe, just really opened their minds towards technology adoption in general, and is helping to drive the growth of the other products in the smart home space. So interesting. All right, so I definitely want to get your sense before we close on what are the other pain points in the home for which we need to be developing additional services. Where is there a need for new services? We've been talking about independent living for some time now, in-home package delivery, those have been on the market for some time too, and of course technical support and energy management. Are there any areas that we're not looking at, that there's an emerging need that we're kind of neglecting? Can any of you talk more about any of those? Are you seeing anything there?
Fritz, do you want to lead off on this one, or you want me to?
Sure, happy to, Alfred. I think one that I see is health, kind of health and fitness holistically, not just the exercise area of health. I mean, we saw last year during the pandemic, not being able to go out, that things like Peloton and iFit classes tied to devices, or Lululemon's Mirror acquisition. We saw a lot of in-home fitness capabilities expand, and I certainly see that there's opportunities for maybe lower cost, more, continuing to see more features built out in that area is one. But even beyond that, I think just health holistically that encompasses our activities, our sleep health. So being able to monitor and assist in better sleep quality. Food, I think, is another area where, whether it's tied to kitchen appliances, food delivery, how can technology help us, have better diets, eat better, be more efficient as we're cooking. So I think holistically, health and fitness is another area where there's a lot of opportunity. Don't know yet what people are willing to pay for, but I certainly see some really good use cases there across all those different dimensions of health and fitness.
Yeah, and certainly, the smart refrigerators that are now on the market are really trying to develop capabilities, just trying to address the food management services that you're talking about, because I find that interesting too. And they're really designed to help consumers to utilize the products that are in their refrigerators better. So it's identifying what's currently in the refrigerator, what's still fresh and useful, and helping them to design menus around those products, to avoid waste, number one, which is important. I mean, how many times are we throwing out, or we do grocery shopping every week just to throw them out at the end of the week or in a couple of weeks because we haven't used them. So it's really just providing those alerts on the freshness of your food and helping you to use them better through the delivery of recipes that make them useful. So did you have any thoughts on that, Alfred? Who are we neglecting, or what services aren't we talking about that we should have been talking about?
Just the homeowners. I say that totally kiddingly. There's so many things that we're doing to make the home smarter, and homes are definitely going down the right path. The one thing that is a huge pain point for us personally is there's the sub-optimization of the knowledge and awareness that we see within homeowners to drive the right behaviors. And one of the biggest challenges is we have no idea what goes on usually inside someone's home. We don't know how often they're cleaning out the dryer vent. We don't know how often they're changing the HVAC filter. There's a lot of those types of things which homeowners now are getting more comfortable sharing the information on and getting reminders and recommendations. So I would say one pain point is understanding the in-home behaviors. The other one is then subsequently being able to have deeply rooted psychological research to understand what would change those behaviors in the home. And it's a beautiful thing too, because some of that is just the direct interaction with the homeowner and radio buttons and simple interactions. But the other thing is it's also the weaving in of technology too. So there's less things that they have to report back. So I would say the in-home behavior, the lack of awareness there, and closing that gap, and then being able to influence the human behaviors are just, for us, it's everything, because we know that that's the best path for us to protect our members and their homeowners. So there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of progress around that. And then in the years to come, there's going to be a further weaving of that with technology and technology offerings too. So that's the biggest thing from our side, from a pain point.
So you're saying that we need help to manage our homes in general, is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. Homeowners are, the biggest determinant of safety within the home, but they're also, when unprepared, can be the most dangerous thing within the home. The number of times that we send out reminders that, no, you're not supposed to put the generator in the garage, and the barbecue can't go directly up against the house, and the lint trap's the thing in the front, the dryer vent's the thing in the back. Those are the type of things that we love humbly sharing with folks so they don't have to learn the hard way. There's enough folks who've learned the hard way.
Yes.
We want to make sure that as many of the things that could be prevented can be prevented. And we just try to help as many people as we can with that.
And we appreciate that. All right, thank you. That will have to be our last word, though. We are right upon our time for this discussion. It was a very good discussion, I thought, and I truly want to thank you both, Alfred and Fritz, for taking on this panel discussion. Quick programming note, once again, we were really hoping to be able to bring in our additional speakers and have or executive Q&A instead of the networking discussion. But instead, we're going to now transition into our networking discussion. So we will not have the executive Q&A right after this. We're going to transition right into our networking discussion. And you can access that discussion by clicking the link, which should be posted in the chat tab. And I'm getting the signal that it's already there. So I expect to see everyone over there in just a few moments. So thank you again for your time, everyone. And please head on over to Zoom where we can talk about this topic a little bit more. It's a very interesting topic. So see you in a minute.